Hello, crafty friend, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Adrienne of Alice Scraps Wonderland. Today, I'm sharing how you can alter wax candles with stamps. I think this is the perfect project for both Halloween and the holiday season, as well as for everyday decor. I'll also be sharing how I altered these candle pillars in this tutorial, but let's not waste any time and get right into it. Here's just some of the supplies you'll need for this tutorial. All of the items you can get online are linked in the description box below. You want to make sure that you have actual wax candles or battery-operated candles that are covered in wax for this project. The wax is key to this technique working. First, let's start off with altering the candle pillars, which I found at my local dollar store. I'm taking these pillars from glam to gothic by getting rid of the brassy gold and making these black and silver instead. If you want to change any non-porous surface like these resin candle pillars, you'll first need to prime the surface you're painting with gesso. Gesso sticks to any surface and has a tooth to it, which basically allows your paint to stick to the surface of the object you are painting. I'm not changing the skull, so I'm just painting all of the gold areas on these pillars with Prima's clear gesso. It starts out a bit glossy and semi-opaque, then dries with a clear matte finish. Once dry, you can use any acrylic paint you want on your pillars. I'm using the creamy matte acrylic paint in black from Sizzix. If you are adding wax to your pillars like I do, my biggest tip is to really pay attention to the direction of your brush strokes with your acrylic paint. These strokes will be highlighted with the wax, so take your time perfecting the brush strokes to get nice, clean lines. After your paint has dried, you can add wax if you want. I'm using the Sizzix Luster Wax in Silver. You can use a brush or sponge for this, but I find I have much better control with my fingers. I like to pounce the excess wax off my fingers onto some plastic packaging before applying the wax to my project. This will keep you from applying the wax with a heavy hand. And because I didn't want any wax on the skull, I added some painter's tape to protect the skull from the wax. Once you are done applying the wax, you can remove the tape and set your pillars aside while you work on altering the candles. To alter the candles, you'll need to trim some white tissue paper to fit your candles, so measure the height of each candle you'll be altering. I found that using a self-healing craft mat and a rotary cutter made cutting the tissue paper a breeze. If your cuts aren't perfectly straight, don't worry, we'll fix that later. Then wrap the tissue paper around your candles to help you know where to trim off the excess length at. You want a small amount of overlap, but not too much. I just eyeballed it. The stamps I'm using are from the Sizzix Studio Mark Montano Stitches set. These stamps have some gorgeous elements that fit in with my gothic Victorian Halloween decor, but these would also work well for shabby chic home decor too. I'm using the Sizzix Studio Registration Press Tool with sticky grid to do my stamping. You want to make sure that your sticky grid on your tool is well-loved sticky grid that is very lightly tacky. Don't use a fresh sticky grid sheet or you'll tear your tissue paper when trying to get it off the tool. Place your tissue paper onto the sticky grid and place your stamps on. I'm keeping these simple with one center image and these scrolls on opposite corners. Remember to keep the overlap of tissue paper in mind when arranging your stamps. You'll want to use a permanent ink for your stamps, and I'm using the Tim Holtz Distress Archival ink in black soot. If you want to get really fancy, you could use a color ink, or you could use embossing ink and embossing powders. What I love about this tool is that if you need to restamp an image a second or third time for a good impression, you can totally do that without having to worry about lining up your stamp perfectly. The tool does it for you. Then I repeat the same stamping technique on the second piece of tissue paper. If you are enjoying this tutorial, don't forget to give this video a like and to hit the subscribe button to get more content like this. Once you are done stamping or stamping and embossing, it's time to make the magic happen. Place your tissue paper over your candle. To attach it to the candle, we'll be using a heat tool to melt the wax on the candle. The wax will come up through the tissue paper and harden as it cools, absorbing the tissue paper and making it translucent. The key is to keep your heat tool moving. You don't want to stay in one area too long, or you could burn your tissue paper. You see that I accidentally do this right at the very end of the second candle, but luckily it was on the back and near the top of the candle. You also want to work from the center of the tissue paper out to the edge. I worked out to one edge of the tissue paper using my hands to keep the tissue paper taut while melting the wax. Then I went back and did the same on the other side, again working out to the edge of the tissue paper. If you find you have too much overlap of tissue paper, you can trim off the excess before you finish heating the candle to attach the final edge of paper. If you have any places on the top or bottom of the candle where the tissue paper overhangs the edge of the candle, use a pair of scissors to trim the excess paper off and reheat the edges of the candle if necessary. And the final step was adding some foam dots to the bottom of the candle pillars to keep them from scratching my wooden surfaces in my home. You can find these on Amazon or in stores that sell home improvement items. And that's it for this altered candle tutorial. Let's take a look at the finished project with the candles all lit up. Thanks for joining me for this tutorial, and I hope you found it inspiring and that you want to give this technique a try. Until next time, happy crafting.